The house was darker than usual when I pulled into the driveway, a low fog rolling across the yard like it had something to hide. I hadn't planned on being home that night. My flight back was supposed to land tomorrow, but a canceled meeting and a restless gut told me to drive through the night instead of checking into another hotel. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was something more primal. Inside, it was too quiet. No TV, no music, no wind-down glass of wine left on the counter, as Cindy usually did after our kid went to bed. Instead, I found her in the laundry room, barefoot, in a hoodie, squatting near the dryer and folding towels. It was past midnight, and our son had school in the morning. The heating was off, and she didn't even flinch when I opened the door. Her eyes flicked up, then back to the towel. "Hey, babe," she said casually, not even surprised to see me. She didn't ask why I was home early. I didn't ask what she was doing. Not yet. I just watched the subtle way her hands moved faster after noticing my suitcase near the doorway. Something wasn't right. The air was dry, but I could feel humidity, like wet fabric left too long. When she walked past me with the laundry basket, I glanced into the bathroom. That's where I found the two t-shirts. Both damp, recently washed. One was mine, a faded blue I used for yard work. The other one, though, was definitely not mine. Bigger, newer, something I'd never seen. I didn't say a word. The next morning, I pretended to sleep in, waiting to see what routine she'd default to. Cindy moved around with a little too much calm, like she was trying to convince herself she hadn't been caught. At breakfast, I opened the closet and noticed something off. My wristwatch, the one my father left me, was gone from its case. In its place was a jacket, not mine. Black, nylon, with a brand I don't wear, and tags still on the inside collar. Then came the real punch. Our son, chewing cereal and staring at the iPad, asked without looking up, "Who was the man that came when you weren't home?" Cindy didn't even glance at me. She just stood, walked to the sink, and turned on the faucet. "Honey, remember we don't talk with our mouths full," she said, voice tight. I didn't say a damn thing. I just kept chewing and nodding. The trap wasn't ready yet. By mid-morning, I'd already made a few calls. I told her family I wanted to throw a surprise dinner. "For Cindy," I said with enthusiasm. "She's been stressed. Thought we'd all sit down, celebrate her." Her mother was delighted. Her brother offered to bring wine. Even her godmother said she'd bake bread from scratch. When I told Cindy that evening, she lit up like we were newlyweds again. She smiled that deep dimpled smile I hadn't seen in weeks. She kissed my cheek and started baking a pie. Apple, the kind she knew I liked. I watched her every move from the living room. She hummed, danced a little between steps, but her eyes were always checking corners. The hallway, her phone. Every few minutes she glanced toward the laundry room. She had no idea what I knew. Dinner was perfect, on the surface. Candlelight, smiling family, her dad telling the same story about how Cindy once got her hair stuck in the mixer at 13. But I could see the cracks in her mask. Her laugh was too rehearsed. Her hand kept going to her phone in her pocket. When the dishes were cleared and wine was poured, I stood. "I've got something I want to share," I said. I brought out the box, nothing fancy, just a cardboard lid folded shut. Cindy smiled, assuming it was a photo album or something nostalgic. I opened it slowly. One by one, I pulled out the items. A photo I found tucked in her planner, taken in a city she claimed to never visit. A ring I found in the back of a drawer. Gold, not hers. Definitely not mine. Two uncorked bottles of Merlot she never touched, even though I was away for the week. I laid them gently on the table. Her mother's face paled. Her brother's brow furrowed. Cindy still smiled. Barely. Then I took out my phone and hit play. A clipped recording, just over a minute long, from a backup I'd pulled off the home security app. "Before Blake returns, I can swing by at 10. He won't be home until morning." The voice was hers. Her tone wasn't casual. It was sweet, deliberate. Her godmother stood up, placing her napkin slowly beside her plate. "I can't listen to this," she muttered and walked toward the door. Her father asked if he could step outside. I nodded. Cindy stared at the table, then bolted for the kitchen. The pie, forgotten in the oven, had started to smoke. I could smell it before she even opened the door. She yanked it out with trembling hands and dropped it in the sink. Burnt crust broke apart under the faucet. From the hallway, our son called, "Mom, is something burning?" Cindy didn't answer. I didn't move. I just stood there staring at the empty chair where she used to sit every Sunday night for dinner. The people who loved her most had nothing left to say. I wasn't going to scream or cry. I didn't want revenge, not yet. I wanted silence. I wanted her to sit with it. Whatever came next, I'd make sure it wasn't a scene. It would be precision, one step at a time. I didn't sleep that night. I tried, curled in the back seat of the car parked near the lake we used to fish at years ago. The cold crept in through the windows, seeping into my bones as if it belonged there. The wind scraped across the surface of the water in low whines. I stared at the dashboard for hours, watching the hands on the clock tick their way toward dawn. When morning came, I drove home to grab documents: passport, birth certificate, my parents' medical files. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the air was warm again, but something was wrong. The hallway was clear. No shoes by the door. No keys on the hook. In our bedroom, my drawers were empty. Everything, clothes, documents, watch box, even my cufflinks, had been shoved into crates and stacked in the garage. On top sat a laminated paper labeled "Temporary until things settle." Her handwriting, smooth, almost cheerful. I didn't speak. I didn't even call her name. I just walked through the house and photographed everything. Every pile, every label, every drawer left half open. I checked the safe in the closet where we kept important documents. Empty. She wasn't home. Neither was our son. My passport, my birth records, and the original deed to our shared apartment, all gone. An hour later, I was sitting in the parking lot of a small cafe, calling in a favor. A friend I'd helped during his messy divorce now worked at the bank where Cindy and I first got the mortgage. I asked him to look up the property. He hesitated, said he could lose his job. "I need to know if my name is still on the deed," I said. 15 minutes later, he called me back. "It was transferred, loan agreement, looks like you borrowed money from her brother and defaulted." I sat in silence, gripping the phone tighter. "I never signed a loan." "I know," he said, voice low. "It's dated 6 weeks ago, notarized. But the signature, it's not yours." I ended the call and sat there for a long time. Later that afternoon, I visited my son's old teacher, Ms. Friel. She still remembered me, still called me Mr. Harlan, with that soft, practiced tone teachers use to cushion bad news. I asked how my son had been doing. She looked hesitant. "He's missed 6 days this month. No calls, no sick notes." When I asked, he said he was with a friend at home. "A friend?" She nodded slowly. "He said the friend was funny and played music on his phone all the time." The pit in my stomach twisted deeper. That evening, I returned to the house, waited until the porch light clicked off, something Cindy had always done around 10. The driveway was empty. I crept through the side yard and used the spare key I'd never told her I kept, taped behind the meter box. Inside, the lights were off, but the place smelled like wine and wood polish. I headed straight for the safe. When we first bought it, I had insisted we both set the code. She'd never changed it. Inside was a slim blue folder. Inside that folder were papers I didn't understand at first. Some were debt notices in my name. Others were loan applications, credit lines, payment agreements, past due alerts, all backdated, all forged. The slant of the letters tried to match mine but failed under scrutiny. Then I found the insurance folder. Life insurance. 2 policies, both with me as the insured. One marked accidental coverage. The payout $500,000. The date of issue? 3 months ago, just before our anniversary. My throat tightened. There was a sticky note on one page. A single word, final. That night, I slept at a roadside motel, phone face down, the glow of the hallway light seeping under the door. The insurance policy throbbed in my head like a second heartbeat. I pictured her flipping through it, signing her name, setting dates. I pictured him, whoever he was, sitting in my kitchen, drinking my coffee, wearing my jacket, teaching my son how to play music on his phone. The next morning, I handed everything to a lawyer I'd contacted through a colleague, a quiet man with thick glasses and a talent for details. He skimmed through the folder without flinching. "We'll file a counterclaim," he said. Forgery, fraud, asset seizure. I nodded, feeling hollow but steady. As we stepped out of his office, she was there. Cindy, on the sidewalk, holding an envelope. I didn't think you'd go this far, she said, voice thin. I didn't reply. This is a restraining order. For domestic violence, she added, extending the envelope. The lawyer took it from her before I could move, opened it, read silently, then looked at me. She filed it 2 days ago, he said, but the court hasn't processed it yet. We just beat it. Cindy blinked. I saw it in her face. That moment where her balance faltered. I didn't say a word. I walked past her, calm, measured. I had no intention of defending myself to someone who erased me with a forged pen and a borrowed coat. But I'd remember the look she gave me. Wide-eyed, lips slightly parted. Not fear, not guilt, surprise. As if she thought I'd still beg her to stop. I didn't stop walking. I wasn't going to anymore. I didn't sleep that night either. Not because I couldn't, but because I wouldn't. Sleep required a kind of peace, and I hadn't known that word in weeks. My mind spun like a clock missing its hands, ticking but aimless. I had a plan, but a plan needs fuel. It needs consequences. So I made a call. Cindy's mother met me at a quiet cafe on the edge of town, the kind of place with cloth napkins and too many syrup options for pancakes. I told her it was about our son. That was only half true. I needed her to see it all. The mess beneath the surface, the parts her daughter had buried in smiles and soft-spoken lies. She arrived wearing her usual lavender scarf and concerned expression. The kind of face that had consoled me after my own mother died. She called me Blake, honey, like she always had. I just want to understand, I said, pulling out a folder, because none of this makes sense unless I lay it out. I placed the diagrams first, timelines marked in red pen. Dates and locations cross-referenced with Cindy's business trips. Then came the bank documents, with highlighted transfers from our joint accounts to ones under her brother's name. I had annotated each one. She scanned each page slowly. Her hand went to her mouth when she saw the messages. The screenshots of Cindy and her mystery lover laughing about how he still hasn't figured it out. Her mother's eyes welled up before the tears came. I thought it was just pressure, the job, the boy. I thought she was just tired, she whispered. But this, I needed you to see it before I take the next step. She wiped her eyes and nodded. I'll talk to the family. 2 days later, they all gathered at Cindy's parents' house, her father, brother, uncles, and her godmother again. I arrived 15 minutes after they sat down, not empty-handed. I had a notary with me, neutral, necessary. Cindy was there, already looking defensive in a too-clean blouse, arms folded like she'd been preparing to fight, but didn't know who the enemy would be. The table was silent as I laid out the evidence, this time in front of everyone. Her brother spoke first, breaking the hush. You told me it was a loan Blake asked for, he said, voice calm but cold. You said it was urgent, that he didn't want to talk about it. Cindy didn't answer. I slid forward the school records, printed emails between the teacher and a fake account she'd created under my name, excusing our son's absences. A forged parent note, full of made-up reasons, family emergency, illness, travel with father. Then came the clincher, a hospital statement where she claimed she'd spent an entire day taking her aunt for tests, but the badge scan logs showed she never entered. Instead, she had used her credit card across town that same day, at a hotel bar, twice. One of the uncles looked at her directly. Who is Andrew? Still, nothing. The silence stretched. Her hands began to tremble in her lap. The notary cleared her throat, then placed a simple form on the table, a family support declaration for joint custody, favoring me. One by one, without theatrics, they signed. Her father didn't even look up after signing his name. Her godmother lingered with the pen in her hand before making her mark. Cindy watched it happen with the slack-jawed expression of someone watching their boat drift into the current, rope in hand, but no idea how to pull it back. When it was done, she stood slowly. Her phone slipped from her hand and clattered to the floor. She didn't bother picking it up. You've gone too far, her brother muttered, stepping away from her. But she didn't defend herself. She just whispered, I didn't mean for it to become all this, and disappeared into the hallway. I didn't need to chase her. The avalanche had already started, and I didn't have to push anymore. I had the signatures. The school would be notified. My lawyer would submit the filings the next morning. That night I returned to the house and changed every lock. The locksmith didn't ask questions. I handed him the keys and stood watch as he replaced them, one by one. By morning, every last trace of her had been boxed and stacked at the edge of the driveway. I placed a tarp over the boxes, labeled it in thick black marker, Cindy. She didn't call. She didn't come. But someone else did. Our neighbor, Mrs. Holloway, the one who used to drop off muffins on Saturdays, came to me as I raked the front yard. I didn't want to get involved, she said cautiously, but I thought you should know. A few times while you were away, I saw a man coming through the back gate, parked down the block. I nodded. I didn't ask her to describe him. I already knew. Inside, I went room to room, wiping surfaces, straightening furniture. I was clearing her scent, removing her presence, making it my house again. By evening, I sat alone in the living room, every window dark, the kitchen quiet. The pie pan was still in the sink, still burned on the bottom. I left it there. I wanted it to stay, a scar of that night, a reminder. By the end of the month, my name was finally my own again. No forged papers, no fake debt, no threats hanging above my head. Cindy's restraining order attempt was dead on arrival, her claims shredded under the weight of the evidence I'd filed. The court didn't just reject it, they looked into her instead. What they found buried the last traces of her control. The deed transfer was nullified. My passport and documents were returned after a quiet but pointed visit from a court officer to her brother's apartment. The man barely looked me in the eye when he handed over the envelope, sealed and shaking in his palm. He knew better than to ask questions. I didn't offer answers. By court order, Cindy was removed from the apartment's co-ownership, permanently. I sold my share of the family business 2 days later. It had been in my family for 2 generations, and I'd poured a decade into it. But there was no longer anything in it that felt mine. I took the payout, opened a new account under our son's name, and moved everything there, secured through an educational support trust. Every dollar now had a future attached to it. None of it bore her name. The court granted me temporary custody while the final ruling was pending. At the hearing, Cindy didn't even bring a lawyer, just a tired apology and tear-soaked claims of stress and being misunderstood. The judge was unmoved. Her financial deception, her attempt to take full ownership of our home, and the school fraud with our son left no room for doubt. She was barred from picking him up from school or being within 100 feet of the building without prior written consent. The ruling became final on a rainy Thursday afternoon. I stood outside the courthouse, holding the decision in one hand, my son's lunchbox in the other. It felt strange, the weight of justice so neatly packed into paper, a paragraph of compensation, 3 pages of custody terms, 8 lines that changed everything. That evening, we carved wood together. It had started as a joke. I bought an old workbench for the garage, thinking I'd need a hobby now that half my life had been cut loose. But my son took to it faster than I did. On Saturdays, we'd build little things, key holders, picture frames, a wonky birdhouse neither of us had the heart to throw away. This time, I gave him a chisel and a plank. "What do you want to make?" "A sign," he said, "for the door." He thought for a while, tongue poking out as he scribbled on the wood with pencil. Then he looked up. "Can we call it Peaceful Home?" I didn't speak for a moment, just nodded. We carved the letters side by side, sloppy, uneven, beautiful. Later that night, we nailed it above the front door. The hammer struck the wood with hollow thuds that echoed out into the dusk. Neighbors came by the next morning. Mrs. Holloway brought pie, said it was too quiet lately without her dog barking at all the wrong things. The Johnsons from across the street dropped off extra cookies from their niece's bake sale. Cindy still sent letters. A few came with threats. Her lawyer, she claimed, would fight the unfair restrictions around her access. Then the tone changed. Apologies, pages of regret, promises to never stop trying to fix what we had. She started leaving small gifts near the mailbox. Children's books, framed photos, things I knew were chosen to pierce the edges of nostalgia. I didn't answer a single one, not out of spite, out of clarity. You don't feed fire with memories and expect it not to burn again. I built a routine, a life with chapters that didn't include her. On Mondays, we walked to the corner store for fresh bread. On Wednesdays, we volunteered at the local craft center. I took a part-time contract teaching basic woodworking there. My son painted signs for every room in the place. Quiet Saw Zone, one read. Glue rules, another. Every Saturday, we cleaned the yard together, washed the dog, made pancakes too thick for the pan. We burned the first one every time, on purpose. Because he liked the smell. He never asked about her again. I didn't offer stories. The silence around her became a new language, one we spoke without guilt. She had chosen her path. I had chosen to survive it. One night, months later, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, staring at the sign above the door. The wood had cracked slightly where the rain had hit it wrong. I made a note to seal it the next day. Behind me, the lights were warm. A dog barked once, rolled over and sighed like it owned the place. My son laughed somewhere inside. I could hear the creak of the floorboards above, and for the first time in months, I felt still. No one entered our house without permission anymore. No more lies drifted through the walls. And what remained, just me, my son, and the life we rebuilt, wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful, and that was enough. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with me today and listened. And if you liked my story, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below what you think about all this, and what would you do if you were me. Also, don't forget to check my other stories in description below.